Chapter 3 discusses marketing research and how companies should be using it to predict where they want to go, where they should be headed, as well as to help them forecast. So before we actually talk about the marketing research process, we're going to go back to the SWOT that we talked about in our last class. One thing that's very important is to look at the external marketing environment, those factors that the firm has no control over whatsoever, to determine what's going on so they can again identify opportunities or look at threats that could be coming in their direction. So there are many factors that they have to consider. First of all, demographics. And in our society, for example, we have a large aging population. So you can expect in the future to see many more products that are oriented to the baby boomers, whether you like it or not. And also social change is a big factor that has to be regarded. Things like blended families are becoming, sort of the norm these days, with families mixing in marriages after divorce and that sort of thing. Also economic conditions. We are just coming out of a recession, and many companies reacted in many ways to that recession. They reduced sizes, for example, certainly kept costs under control for customers. So those economic conditions are very important. Also political and legal factors, these change a lot. Clearly things like the Consumer Protection Act protect consumers in many different ways, so that they have to be looked at constantly. Also technology changes things greatly, not only in terms of how companies can research, for example, through the internet, but also how products can be produced much more quickly. Prices change sort of on the fly, and also the products themselves. There are a lot of technological products that were not available 10 years ago. And also, in that external environment, one of the most important things is competition. And so constant competitive analysis is very important in looking at the SWOT. So in looking at all these factors a little bit more individually, social factors, first of all, we are all under a lot of time pressure, because that is, we lead what marketing calls component lifestyles. We have many roles that we go through every day. A lot of us work, some of us are parents, or we're taking care of parents, we're siblings, and our roles change, and how we purchase changes based on those component lifestyles. And that adds to a lot of time pressure that we have in our lives, which really impacts how we purchase. Also our values, that gets back to the whole cultural concept. And some of those are typically very enduring throughout our lives. So if one of our values, for example, is to be thrifty, then that is going to impact, how we make purchases. And also, this seems like an odd category, but the changing role of women. Really, women have only been part of the working world in the U.S. since the 1970s, and they have changed things a great deal. If you think about going up and down the aisles of Albertsons grocery store, you see so many convenience goods, and those would not be there if women did not work. So that drove that whole industry. Demographic influence. Many different generations in the U.S., and they all have a lot of purchasing power and, of course, have very different needs. So it's important for marketing to look at these generations individually to determine what the trends are, what it is that they're going to need in the future. So, for example, tweens are a huge market. These are not the teenagers of the 50s. They have, first of all, a lot of purchasing power. $40 million. Some of them have their own allowances, or they certainly can talk their parents into buying things. Very large population, 29 million, and especially with technology, oh my gosh, they are just eat that stuff up. So they are a huge category to be dealt with. And also they don't really see advertising as anything special. So they don't really pay attention to it. It's just advertising. So there are different ways that this population has to be reached, particularly through social media, even though there's a lot of controversy about marketing to tweens. And also, more than likely, because of their technological savvy, they will be very influential in our history. Gen Z, born between 1995 and 2009, this now has exceeded the baby boom population in terms of numbers. And boy, this is very telling. It's like they just have totally grown up with cell phones, computers, etc. So everything is about social media for them. But they are involved with civil engagement. They care about giving back. Diversity is something that they have grown up with. $2 billion. And they are also very savvy shoppers, so they don't really believe marketing. And again, their word of mouth really happens on social media. So this is a little clip on a company that addresses Gen Z and Y, and I would thought you would enjoy some of the indicators or some of the factors that they use to be successful in this marketplace. So again, it's all about social media. That's how you get to them. Also, they're very experiential. They want to be a part of things. So that's the kind of communication that needs to be used with them. Gen Y, between 79 and 94, and a large population as well, about 60 million. And huge amounts of dollars are spent by this particular generation. And they are rather impatient. But they don't want to really, especially work a lot. They're going to be spending more time with the family. Also very opinionated. Again, they grew up with diversity, and they are very street smart when it comes to marketing. So they don't believe advertising particularly. So word of mouth, through friends is going to be the way to get to them. I kind of like this clip. I'm not exactly sure where I got it, but Gen Y, why should I get a job? Why leave home? Why get a car? Why clean my room? Indeed. Some of this is true. A lot of these stereotypes come from somewhere, right? So I thought that was pretty funny. Okay, baby boomers, between 46 and 64. And this is kind of a large range of age, honestly, but 77 million. And again, Gen Z has just surpassed them. But $1 trillion, and think about what they are spending their money on. First of all, they are very independent. These are not, the 70-year-olds of 50 years ago. They're very engaged with life, doing things that my grandparents would never have thought of doing. And also they continue to work because they are vibrant, want to continue to be involved, want to be intellectually stimulated. So unfortunately, it's keeping some of the younger folks from getting jobs, but their income continues to be very high. So they are a large segment to be dealt with. Also, ethnicity is a huge issue in the U.S. Hispanics, particularly, are the largest growing um, sub-target market, subsegment of our market, and they represent about $1 trillion in spending. They're about 12 to 13% of our population. African Americans, the same thing, about 12%, and 921 billion. Also, Hispanics, interestingly enough, of all of the subsegments, they are the largest users of the internet, so and cell phones. So it's like that is definitely how to get to Hispanics. And Asian Americans are by far the wealthiest, highest income of all of our subsegments. And they are very into technology and live in very affluent places and spend a lot of money. And they are about 2 to 3% and not growing as quickly as the Hispanic population. Okay, again, women, they definitely bring in half of the household income and now control over half of the private wealth. And really, women control a lot of the spending in the house, which you would assume. But also, these numbers are pretty interesting because 68% of decisions for new cars are made by women, computers, home improvements. So some of those areas that you wouldn't really assume really involve women in the decision making. Okay, so marketing research. Now that companies have really dealt with the external environment, now they have to think about, okay, what are our particular problems? And what is it that we want to solve? And where do we want to go? So there are many needs for marketing research. First of all, of course, it should improve the way decisions are made. If you're not going to do any research at all, that's really a roll of the dice. So it's going to improve the quality. Also, it can help identify problems. For example, if Bank of America is losing customers, why is that happening? And therefore, they can develop a marketing solution to prevent that from happening. Also, you've got to stay in touch with your existing customers. That's where you're making the money, and where are they headed? What do they want next? Because clearly competition can come in at any time and snatch them away. So just in general, understanding the marketplace. Big consumer products companies like Procter & Gamble have huge departments that do nothing but track trends. And so they have to constantly know what people are thinking. In a very highly technical world like ours, that's a very difficult thing to do. And also, on an ongoing basis, companies really need to track how satisfied customers are so they can do the next best thing. Here we're seeing a Starbucks taster. That'd be a fun job. So they are continue to identify new flavors and where customers are going, etc. That will continue to please them. Two different types of research, and this is definitely a review from your undergrad course, but quantitative would deal with numbers. So you're going to have a theory. It's like, okay, in the case of Bank of America, I think that we are losing checking accounts because we charge for ATM withdrawal. Okay, so then clearly their research design would be developed according to that research question or that theory. With qualitative, it works the opposite. You gather data. So, for example, with the same type of question with Bank of America, why are we losing checking account customers? So basically, they would start to interview people and understand why before they went to this type of quantitative survey. So oftentimes you see these two pieces of research done together in what is called mixed methods, because you want to, first of all, get the why and how to help you really focus on more precise information, more analytical information later. So you often see those done together. Although always with research, the issue is time and money. Companies never have enough money to dedicate to a particular research product, nor do they have the time, because competition is always at your heels, and you have to continue to make decisions without having completely adequate information. There are two different types of data as well. You've got secondary data, and this is always a place to start. This is data that is out there. So you can go on census.gov, for example, and get a lot of demographic data and other type of data as well, lifestyle and that type of thing. So that is very helpful, and of course it's very inexpensive.